Okay, I'd like to call to order the meeting of September 11, 2012 of the Long Beach Community College District Board of Trustees. We held an executive session. There is nothing to report. Can I please have the Long Beach City College Veterans Club please step forward? All rise, please. As I mentioned earlier, today is September 11th. It's a day that will forever be ingrained in our memories for what happened on that fateful day 11 years ago. We lost friends, we lost families, we lost a lot of people who were very important to our country, and our country is forever changed because of what happened that day. I wish that we didn't have to do this every year because it's always painful to bring back memories. But let's remember also that we have a wonderful country that we live in, and that our freedoms are always protected by those men and women in the armed services around the world who protect those freedoms. We have two representatives here who are members of our Veterans Club here at Long Beach City College. I've asked that they step forward and salute our colors, and if I can have one of them please lead us in the flag salute of our country. Okay, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Before you leave, can you please step by the podium and introduce yourselves? I'd like to know who you are. Go ahead. And your service, where you been?
My name is Jose Nuila. I was in the Marine Corps from 2005 to 2010. I started school in last year, fall of 2011, and I'm proud to be in the Veterans Club.
Thank you.
My name is Ted Kim. I was in the United States Marine Corps from 2007 to 2011, and I started school at Long Beach City College for 2011. Thank you.
Are there any other veterans in the audience? Please stand and be recognized. Eloy, you're one of them. You're in. Okay, let's give these individuals a hand for this wonderful service done to our country. Again, thank you for your service, and we wish you well in your studies, and thank you for your service to our country. Okay, can we please have roll call?
President Uranga.
Present.
Vice President Kellogg.
Here.
Member Bowen.
Here.
Member Clark. Member Otto. Here. Student Trustee Troya.
Present.
Any welcomes and introductions, President Superintendent Oakland?
Not at this time.
Okay. We have action item, approval of the minutes of August 28th, 2013.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Minutes are approved as provided. Anyone have an order in the agenda? No order in the agenda. Thank you very much. Okay, item 1.1 is the 2012-2013 proposed budget for Long Beach Community College District. This is a public hearing for that item, and so we will it's duly noted that it has been advertised and duly agendized for review. Madam Secretary? Okay. Does anyone want to comment on on this item at this point? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed. 1.2, resolution support Proposition 30, Schools and Local Public Safety Protection Act. Can I have a motion, please?
Move approval.
Okay, move to approve and seconded. Discussion. Is there?
I'm sorry. Well, I can say it's very important that everyone support this proposition. If it isn't supported, we're going to have serious loss of revenue as far as the college is concerned, and we're going to have fewer classes, which is going to be very harmful to our students. So everything you can do, if you're a voter, certainly get out and vote, get your parents get out and vote, your friends get out and vote, because if that doesn't pass, we're going to have some more cuts, and you're the ones that are going to be hurt, and we don't want you to be hurt. So get out. Proposition 30 is essential for this college and for all the college and for all the students. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion.
Excuse, Mr. President.
Okay,
our student
Trustee Bowen.
wanted to comment.
Well,
It's our
Trustee
student
Toya, I'm
trustee
sorry.
wanted to comment.
Trustee Toya.
I just want to say that the survival of our college depends on Proposition 30 passing. Without it, I don't even want to know what the day after the election would look like. $8.4 million worth of cuts is what we would go through if Proposition 30 doesn't pass. I'd like to cast an advisory vote in favor of this when you guys vote.
Okay. Thank you. Trustee Otto?
Just very briefly to reiterate what Trustee Clark said and our student trustee as well. We need to make $2 million in cuts now. And with the process we're going through, there's going to be a lot of hurt in terms of employment and what we're going to be able to do what we're going to be able to offer our students. But if Proposition 30 doesn't pass, we're going to experience more than 4 times that amount of loss to our students and to the members of our community here. And so I can't say, Proposition 30 is not a solution to what's going on in California. But without it, the magnitude of the almost instant changes that will take place is hard to fathom. I don't think people actually really do fathom it. So we encourage each and all of you to not only vote, but to talk to everyone you know and explain what will happen and how it will fundamentally change the way we do business here at Long Beach City College if this doesn't pass. And it's each and every one of our responsibilities.
Mr. President. Yeah, it is an increase in tax. It's a quarter-cent sales tax, which is very little, and it's a tax on incomes over $250,000. So that will raise a considerable amount of money. And that's where, and of course, as you know, taxes are not easy to pass. They're very difficult to pass, so it is important that you get out and vote and get everybody you know that is a voter to get them out to the ballot box. Thank you.
Trustee Kellogg?
I honestly, we're all preaching to the choir right here because we all realize, because we live it on a daily basis, how critical this is with our funding. And I just, you go back and forth when you hear people talking about ballot measures and so on. And my concern was always with the people taking out their frustration on state legislature and the fact they don't trust, whatever those arguments are. I try to remind people, first off, how generous people have always been in a local to this college, to the people in this area, how they ever supported this college. And also I remind everyone about the work that people have done at this college in the past few years. When people talk about all the issues that have gone on in Sacramento, this gridlock, not doing reforms, making the significant changes, and I remind them that at Long Beach City College, if you look at what has taken place here from all of our constituency groups, whether it be our faculty, our classified staff, our administrators, they have all stepped up a long time ago, really. And it wasn't easy, but everyone did the things as far as salary compensation, in benefits, all of those type of things people look at, we have done at this college. When I say we, we're all in this. There have been reforms on how we operate as a college to try to be more streamlined. And so during these real difficult times, you go to the ballot in November, as you go to vote, I just try to always encourage people that we've been very fortunate in Long Beach. This has been a wonderful community for the college. The college has been wonderful to the community. And also, though, regardless of how people feel about other levels of government or people in government, I can't tell you how proud I am of the people at this college who have stepped up, done the things necessary in very difficult times. If you look and you watch, you see things taking place in Chicago, where you have people now protesting in the streets. We have, and there's always been people that will threaten that, but the fact is we've had a lot of people who have worked through difficult times here at the college. And I just remind everyone that on a very local level, granted this has to pass statewide, but I feel very confident that people have always been generous towards education in particular. I hope they will continue to do that because simply they know that we have in education in general and at Long Beach City College in particular, we've done the things here as a college to address the issues. We've done it. And as was mentioned, if it does not pass, how we have been planning on the worst case scenario as well. And we all know it's not going to be a simple task if it is unsuccessful. So maybe it's just being it's the internal optimist as we get closer to November. But I really believe that people will stand up for education in general in our community for this college in particular. And we also have the K-12 system, Long Beach Unified, who's also going to be impacted. But I just wanted to express my thanks to all the different groups here at the college who over the course of the last 12, 24, 36 months have really made some changes to how we operate as the college. And I just tell people that because we have done those things, and I think those individuals deserve to be given the funding now and not treated as if what's going on in Sacramento. That's not my argument. It's what we've done here. And I hope that we are rewarded with those efforts by not having to go through this horrible scenario of budget cuts that we all realize if this is not successful. And I think the people of the state have always been very generous, and this city has been very generous, and I just hope it continues because it's worth funding. This college is worth spending the additional money for because we have used the tax dollars in a very appropriate way, and that's because all the people are here. So I just hope my optimism continues through November. Talk to me in October. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we have our assignment. I concur with all the comments of my colleagues. If you love education and you love Long Beach City College, please remember to vote and encourage your peers and your friends and your family to also vote on November 6th. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Take the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you very much for your support on this. We are now at committee reports. Any committee reports? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to student trustee. Jason.
So I had initially planned to discuss Proposition 32 at this meeting, but some last-minute developments have necessitated a change. The ASB has been given a choice, at least it seems like a choice, in order to fund a full-time student discipline position. Our administrative assistant position is being held over us. We have to basically choose between her or our intramurals program. Our ASB is committed to our students and making informed decisions. We need to at least be afforded adequate time to do our own due diligence. Have we explored using federal work study to supplement that department, or hiring someone temporarily until we address the underlying cause of the problem? I contend that we do not need a full-time student discipline person, and here's why. The overwhelming majority of the students who come before the disciplinary board have never heard of our code of conduct. We've gutted our counseling department and left these students with zero guidance about our policies and procedures on campus. Step number one to solving this issue is to do away with the online orientation process. If students were required to sit through a brief explanation of our code of conduct, the workload and student discipline would plummet. I realize that ignorance of the law is no defense, but if we are setting most of our students loose without any real explanation of our rules, how can we expect them to succeed? One of our goals is student success. We need to help facilitate that. We need to go out and meet with students. We need to educate them on our policies. And above all, we need to be proactive. I anticipated that the response that I would likely get would be that this planned layoff is due to our budget crisis. But if that's the case, why are we replacing that employee with one who has a higher salary? I'm formally asking you to allow us a few months to work on solving this problem and addressing the underlying cause of it as an ASB. This decision is not just rushed and ill-conceived, but it's bad business and it doesn't even pencil out. Thank you.
Okay, is that all for today? Yep, okay. Thank you. Public comments on agenda items. I have two invitations here. Just to remind you that at the request, members of the public may comment on items listed on the agenda at the time the item is discussed and prior to board action on the item. A 5-minute time limit will be allotted to each speaker with a maximum of 20 minutes to each subject unless extended by the board president. The two speaker cards that I have here are on the same. So I would like to invite those individuals up right now. First one is Thomas Hamilton, AFT Union Classified, Reduction of Classified Staff, and the second is Ann Engel, speaking on the same subject.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, faculty, students, and fellow classified employees. It seems like just yesterday I stood before you regarding the classified employees. Back in June of this year, 176 employees had their lives changed. There are 47 of us gone, and another 25 have had their reduced hours. Some are now 11 months, some are 10 months, and others are down to 9 months. We have also had some reduced to 47%, which cuts their pay in half and also takes away all their benefits. Then there are the bumpings. One person moves to another department, bumps an employee, that employee bumps another employee, and so on and so forth. And as I speak to you tonight, the bumping continues. All of this was because of two reasons: lack of work or lack of funds. The district needed $5.1 million, and they made the classified employees pay for it. We thought that everybody was safe until June of 2013. We had paid the amount the district said that they needed until today. Now the district wants to again hit us. Tonight they want you to approve the layoff of 3 more classified employees, but now they have a new reason: restructure or reorganization. It has not been 3 months or 90 days since our last hit. We thought we had time to recover from our June hit. We feel that we have paid more than our fair share. So when will it stop? And what do we want? Tell the district no. Tell them that it ends. Tell the classified employees that you agree with us. Tell us that you feel our pain. And tell the district on 9/11/2012, no more layoffs of classified employees. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Engel.
Hello, thanks for letting me speak. I'm here to speak about the community role of Long Beach City College, its responsibilities to the community, and how the reductions of the past, present, and future are affecting our city. I've worked with many of the people on this board, and I believe everyone has a good heart and is doing what they think is best for the future of this college. But there is a reason that the superintendent president's contract requests that he or she live in Long Beach and be part of the community. I've seen Mr. Otto in my doctor's waiting room. I've marched in parades down Ocean Boulevard with several members of the board. And I can see that you care about this community. Every day you see the needs of our city and how the decisions made by this college affect our people. I understand the economic climate, but when financial decisions are made, they need to be predicated on what is best as a whole. It appears you are just looking through glasses that sees dollars and cents and don't fully consider the colors that make up our city. I fear our community needs are not being represented. Last May, I was speaking with a dean that was taking a position with another district. I mentioned how sad I was for all the ESL students that were struggling to make a better life for themselves, but no longer had the opportunities here at Long Beach City College due to our drastic spending cuts. He said that his new district has a campus for continuing education with a large ESL program. I asked how they could afford it. He said it was a matter of priorities. Long Beach is one of the most diverse cities this size in the nation, with a large variety of languages spoken in the home, and we don't consider ESL a priority. And not everyone is destined for a college degree. They work with their hands. They need exposure to jobs that fit their interest. Some have gone off track and are looking for a fresh start and need a skill to earn a living to keep them out of trouble. We see a lot of these students at the PCC trades area. I believe there is only one trade at the PCC campus that isn't on the program discontinuous list. What happens to the young students that aren't meant for academics and the ones that need a second chance? Many of them live in Long Beach. How could that decision affect their opportunities, their options, and possibly the safety of our communities? Is this a priority? Many of the classified employees live in Long Beach. Our children go to Long Beach schools. We shop and spend money in Long Beach, if we have it. I have great concern over the quality of jobs that we are offering our community. It almost seems like we are a temp agency, especially if you look at the economic and resource development area. Our district should do its best to support our community by offering jobs that will at least provide health care. Or if it is necessary to have these 47.5% jobs that are 1 hour per week short of benefits, at least let those willing and qualified to hold jobs do so, hold 2 jobs do so. Then they can be thriving members of our community. Right now, there is some policy that blocks this, and I think that is shameful. A new policy also states that even part-time classified can't teach part-time. No wonder we have classified qualified for food stamps, and so many needing to take second jobs. But of course, they can't take that second job here at Long Beach City College. Offering jobs without health insurance doesn't help our community because our community will still pay for it. Are quality jobs a priority? There are a lot of hard decisions that have to be made over the next several months, and I pray Prop 30 passes and eases the burden. But either way, we have priorities to consider, and I hope that they all aren't chosen strictly on the bottom line because we have a community to look out for. We can keep paying for the many best and brightest administrators, or we can all work together to share the pain. With tonight's announcement of 3 more classified layoffs, when is the pain going to be shared by other employee groups the way the classified feels it? Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments. We are now at the consent agenda. Can I have a motion, please?
Move approval.
Second.
Can I have a motion and a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, we're at the end of the consent calendar. We're now in human resources. Item 5.3, resolution, reduction of classified staff. There's an action item. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I have a motion to what?
Approve the
To approve the item, okay. Can I have a second? Can I have a motion to approve the resolution and a second? Any discussion? Okay, as we just heard, it is painful, and we do care very much. I care very much. It is one, I've said this over the years as I've been here, and we've gone through some of these very difficult decisions of layoffs, restructuring, reorganization of the college. And the college that I joined as a trustee in 2000 is not the same college that I have now in 2012. We've gone through a lot of changes, a lot of transformations, and it's one of the most difficult things that I do as a trustee. I wish it were always fun about parades, community meetings, and being out amongst you to talk about how great and wonderful college we have. But the reality is that California is in the position where it cannot sustain itself. It is up and down the state and up and down the 112 community colleges that exist in the California community college system, where each one of us, each campus, each district is going through a metamorphosis, going through a change, where each one of them is also having to address layoffs, a reduction in force, restructuring, reorganization. And we are but one of 112 colleges, 72 districts. So it is very difficult to come to this. And as it was stated earlier, I think Trustee Otto mentioned it, there's more to come. There's more difficult decisions to be made. I just hope that we have the wisdom, that we're given the wisdom and the wherewithal, the strength to move forward with what we need to do to keep Long Beach City College functioning, to keep the services to our students strong. Can you put up that mission up there, please? And to address our mission, because that's where the rubber meets the road. That's what we're about. And I hope that as we move forward, that we keep this mission in the backs of our minds, because that's what we're all about. That's what we need to do. Long Beach City College promises equitable student learning and achievement, academic excellence, and workforce development by delivering high-quality educational programs and support services to our diverse communities. That's what we're about. And if we have to do this because it's the only way that we can keep our mission, then so be it. But it's not something we like to do. And we are handed what we are handed by the state of California, by Sacramento. We just passed a resolution in support of Proposition 30, which may not be the panacea that we want it to be, but it will certainly help us in trying to address the issues that we have going forward, because it's not going to get any better. It can only get worse. But without Proposition 30, we are going to see something very much worse. So I encourage you again to please vote on November 6th. Vote for Proposition 30. And again, if you like education, you love Long Beach City College, please vote in favor of that. Trustee Clark.
Yeah, this is my 14th year on the board. Most of those years we've added to the staff. We've added salary increases, not every year, but most years, so we've been adding. It's very difficult to get into an era where we're subtracting. But you have to realize that 87% of our budget is salaries. So if we have $1 million loss, or multi-million dollars losses each year, there's no way we can avoid affecting the employees. It has been mentioned, it's not enjoyable to sit up here and see people that are going to be retired before they really planned on it, or are losing their health benefits. And I think most people that work in the public sector have looked at it for years that they're going to have a career. We're laying off policemen and firemen in the city. So this is not something that we enjoy doing, but it's something you have to, if you don't do it, and we have to make cuts, that then we're going to get into serious financial problems. And then you have some real problems that some of the colleges have faced. So it isn't something that we enjoy doing. We dislike it very much, but we're not given much of a choice, unfortunately. And again, Proposition 30, if we don't pass, as we've mentioned, there's going to be serious cuts again.
Trustee Kellogg.
If, and I agree with the speakers, my colleagues, when no words are going to ease the pain, what we're doing here. It's never easy, and Tom and I, when we served on the Long Beach City Council, they had more abilities as a city to generate revenue, which we don't have that luxury as a college. We are 100% dependent upon Sacramento. That, again, doesn't ease anyone's pain. But what I would like to, if anyone would like to comment from the staff side, is the question that comes up, and it's a very good question, and one thing that we have always tried to be, we as a board, there's only a few things we can really push on doing. As was mentioned by, there was a line by former President Clinton at the convention, he used, it's a neat, he said, just do the math. And you just do the math, you realize we don't have a lot of options. Matter of fact, we have no options. Somebody is going to have to reduce their workload, their job, so on. Nothing, there's no joy in doing that. But what we try to do as a governing body, as a college, is the issue, because I hear it come up. I heard it when I was on the city council with Tom. People always question the process and the transparency of the process. There is no hidden agendas. There is no one we are trying to favor over the other. And the way we try to do that, and so whether if Eloy, you, or someone would just like to comment briefly on the process that has taken place on when all of these actions and potentially more, well, regardless, there's going to be more come in November. We know that as well. But just a brief comment on the transparency, on the process. These are not things that we just come up with at the last second. We are actually going through a very lengthy process thinking about it, and it's never easy because we know what the outcome is. So if you would like to make some comments on the transparency of the process or the process itself, so people once again know that this is something we're very conscientious about, because we know we know the pain that's going to happen. So if we at least try to explain to people that we go through this in a way, may not like the end results, but we want to make sure people understand how we got there. And it wasn't something that was a very quick decision at all. Never has been. Eloy, would you like to comment on that?
Well, Trustee Kellogg, as with any of these decisions, they come with a lot of deliberation, a lot of painful discussions, and obviously that's repeated more and more as we over the last couple of years. These particular reductions that we're talking about today are directly tied because of the categorical nature of the funding. Quite frankly, categorical programs will probably continue to be hit over time, even if Prop 30 passes. And so I certainly appreciate Mr. Hamilton's comments, and I will continue to work with Mr. Hamilton and the AFT to do as much as possible to support our classified staff. And yes, they certainly took a huge hit. But I think we need to realize that the state continues to divest in public education and will continue to divest in categorical programs, and that's something that we understand and we're trying to deal with. With regard to the other processes that we're going about, Vice President Lowenstein will have a report a little bit later, specifically on the program discontinuance process. We will continue to include as many constituent groups as possible in the process and work with the Academic Senate leadership to have as transparent and as clear a process as possible. But ultimately, the challenge that we face, and again, I certainly support Prop 30, but I think the point needs to be clear that even if Prop 30 passes, the state of California still has a huge issue in terms of balancing its budget. And we were going to continue to be in this situation until the state's economy turns around to a point where we can pay back all of the debt that we've incurred over the last several years. So there are many changes happening, many of which are happening at the state level, the national level, and we're going to work through those as best we can, and we will always respect any individual who has their job interrupted in any way or loses their job, and we will work with that individual as closely as possible to help him or her transition.
Yeah. Trustee Bowen?
Yeah, I had spoken with Superintendent President Oakley about this item this morning. I had mentioned, I was, very uncomfortable what we had to do back in June with all those layoffs, and this kind of puts me in a difficult position because I talked to the people at the college. I indicated that I was not comfortable that I was doing it on the understanding that we were trying to make cuts where we could to try to stabilize so that we would not have to do any more in the future, unless of course Prop 30 doesn't pass, which changes the math completely. But I mean, you were trying to explain to me that the difference between this and what we voted on in June. Could you repeat some of the stuff you were explaining to me earlier?
Well, I think this gets back to the point that Trustee Clark made in terms of the general fund budget being at 87% salary and benefits. That is a problem for the district, and that we continue to run a deficit in the general fund budget. In the spring, we took action to reduce the budget by $5.1 million out of the general fund. These were general fund reductions which were specific to our state apportionment that we get for the work that we do in terms of educating students. Categorical programs are funded differently. They're funded by either other state or federal resources to run specific programs, such as one of the examples is CalWorks. That is not funded by our state apportionment. So we can expect that those programs will continue to see cuts until the state stabilizes their budget. And those have a direct impact on the categorical program, whether that be EOP&S, CalWorks, DSPS. We have several categorical programs, some of which have taken a cut of up to 50% over the last several years. You cannot sustain those cuts, and if we draw resources from the general fund to support categorical programs, and you're taking money out of the classrooms, and we're going to see further reductions in those positions funded by the general fund. So we've taken the position that if the state or the federal government cuts a categorical program, then we're going to have to take corresponding action to reduce the budget in that categorical. So yes, Trustee Bowen, I mean, the point was made that with the changes, the reductions we made, we are hoping to stem the need to make further drastic actions like we took with the classified staff. But unfortunately, there are some areas of the college that may still see impacts, and those particularly are the categorical programs, or if we do eliminate an instructional program that has a specific, unique classified position assigned to that, that could be impacted as well. But we are going to try to limit any further impact to that employee unit, unless, of course, Prop 30 fails or the governor's revenue for projections don't come to fruition.
And so these three positions are all categorical, and that's what makes them different from the ones that we...
Well, there's a EOPS position, there's a CalWorks position, and then there's a position that was discussed earlier, which is the intramurals position, which I believe has been a general fund position, but supported by the ASB, correct? So the three positions haven't been directly funded by the general fund.
Any further comments, Trustee Bowen? No, that's it. That's it. Okay. Okay. Any more comments? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Nay? Abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Next item is Academic Senate. No items, no report. Is that correct? Superintendent President's report. Superintendent Oakley.
Yes, thank you, Board President Uranga. I just have a brief report and a couple of updates. First of all, I want to echo your comments about today's 9/11 anniversary. I also want to echo the need to continue to remember those who gave their life in support of their country, and that we honor all those who died on that day, and as you said, wish that we wouldn't have to commemorate this day, but we need to continue to do so. On a lighter note, tomorrow we kick off the celebration of Long Beach City College's 85th anniversary with a brief ceremony at Wilson High School, where in 1927 Long Beach Junior College was opened at the Wilson campus. So we're going to go back there and celebrate the beginning of the 85th anniversary of Long Beach City College, and then come back here to the Liberal Arts campus at 11 a.m. and continue that celebration here. So hopefully all that can join will be there. I want to thank everyone who worked on and helped put together the Latin American parade this weekend. It was a wonderful parade. I had the opportunity to be a part of it along with several of our trustees. So as always, it was a great opportunity to celebrate the diversity of Long Beach, so I was happy to be there. And speaking of diversity, on October 9th, Long Beach City College is sponsoring a conference for all faculty and staff titled Walking the Talk, and it will be on diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education. This is a theme that we continue to discuss amongst the college community as our college continues to become more and more diverse, and that is certainly an issue that we all take pride in. We want to spend some time talking about how we can continue to improve on that and leverage the diversity that we celebrate here at Long Beach City College. So we'll have a keynote speaker that day, Dr. Darrell Smith, Professor of Education Psychology at Claremont Graduate University, and the author of Diversity's Promise for Higher Education, Making It Work. So encourage all the faculty and staff to attend, and certainly all the trustees are welcome to attend as well.
What is the date on that again?
October 9th, beginning at 9 a.m. At the Liberal Arts Campus Auditorium. And it will go till 4:15 that day. Finally, to beat a dead horse already, I wanted to make a comment about the budget presentation that we have today. This college, along with all of our colleges, and I appreciate the comment earlier about how some districts are different than Long Beach City College, and that's true. We have a wide variety of different colleges that have evolved to serve different missions. Everything from what you see happening at San Francisco City College, which has a huge non-credit program and is now suffering the consequences of the state's fiscal crisis and having to change their mission, to a district like North Orange County Community College District, which also has a large non-credit program. There are reasons that our colleges are different, and they are funded differently. They have the capacity to offer non-credit education and are funded to do that mission. And there were reasons that our colleges evolved that way. Our college did not evolve that way. Our college had a very close relationship with Long Beach Unified, and Long Beach Unified took most of the adult education, and it was their mission to execute that. Unfortunately, the state has not been interested in funding adult education. That is unfortunate for many, many reasons. There is no doubt that that mission is not important, but we must continue to prioritize our funding on the primary mission of Long Beach City College, and that is to prepare our students to receive certificates, to transfer, and to achieve their associate's degrees. And many can argue that that shouldn't be limited, that we shouldn't limit our mission to that. But we must take care of that mission first and foremost and work with the state and other representatives to expand the mission, and if we are going to expand the mission, to have the state of California fund that mission. Today's budget presentation is an attempt to present a balanced budget based on the information that we know. And we've asked many employee groups, many employees personally and as a group to help reduce the cost of salaries and benefits, and employee groups like the classified staff have responded. But going forward, we're also going to have to deal with the need to restructure the way the college is organized, because we educate more than 2,000 students less than we did 2 or 3 years ago. We may educate another 2,000 less if Prop 30 doesn't pass. We've got to reorganize the college to meet those needs, and that will include both academic administrators, other instructional staff, as well as the sacrifice that the management team and the classified staff have already made. As we move through this process, I think that everyone will come to see that it will include all employee groups as we move forward. I certainly appreciate all the work that has already been done, but there is still work to be done, and I think this budget will present an opportunity for us to try and resolve some of those issues, and hope that the state's fiscal situation begins to turn itself around so that we can go back to the point where we're actually thinking about how to create programs that respond to the community needs, instead of trying to reduce the number of programs we have to only respond to the community's greatest needs. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to the next item, academic affairs, overview of criteria and process for program discontinuance. This is an informative item, and I think this is Vice President Gaither Lowenstein.
Yes, thank you.
He's not leaving, is he?
Thought about it. He'd like it.
President Uranga, members of the board, President Oakley, I've been asked to give an overview of our criteria and our processes that we are beginning to undergo for program discontinuance here at Long Beach City College. I'm exceptionally good at technology, as you might have already picked up on. I want to begin with the rationale for program discontinuance. As we've been discussing, Long Beach Community College, Long Beach City College is facing budget reductions that are going to range from $2 million under the best of circumstances to as many as $8.4 million under a worst case scenario. When we implement these reductions, we need to do so in a manner that preserves maximum resources to accomplish the Board of Trustees' goals and, of course, our educational master plan. I mentioned a couple of times this evening that 87% of our current college budget is comprised of salaries and benefits. This would be faculty salaries, classified staff salaries, management salaries and benefits. This is essentially an unsustainable ratio because your non-salary and benefit costs continue to go up, things like utilities, equipment costs, and these types of things. So ultimately, that percentage, in order for the college to remain fiscally sound, needs to come down. And you will note that previous rounds of budget reductions have primarily impacted our part-time faculty, our classified staff, and some of our managers. Now, in undergoing this process, we look at a number of different criteria. Last spring, the College Planning Committee, which is a shared governance group, adopted some criteria for budget reductions that we are adhering to. The first of which is that we need to maintain the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff, and we also need to maintain regulatory compliance, statutory compliance, and compliance with accreditation requirements. We also need to meet our legal and contractual obligations, but most importantly, we need to minimize the impact on students as much as possible. How do we do this? Well, we have to look at how many students are affected by the proposed program reduction, the extent to which the program, service, or activity advances student success. We want to focus on certificate and degree completion as well as transfer. We want to focus to make sure that we have equitable impact for students on both campuses. We want to have maximum student access. We look at things like the weekly student contact hours to full-time faculty ratios, wait lists, and numbers of students served, so that we minimize the impact of the reductions on how many students are able to access our educational services. We look at the extent to which the program, service, or activity advances our institutional priorities, and you'll note that this past spring, the College Planning Committee adopted a single institutional priority for 2012-13, and that is to improve rates of student success. This means successful course completions, this means completion of degrees and certificates, and this means having students be prepared to transfer to four-year institutions. We look at the degree to which any activity duplicates services, programs, or activities offered within the college or elsewhere within the surrounding area. We look at evidence, we look for evidence of employer demand and community need for the program or activity. And finally, well, not finally, but we look at the currency, how current is the program in relation to employer demand and transfer institution requirements? Has the program kept up with changing technology and the changing demands of employers and transfer institutions? And then finally, CPC asked us to examine the effect of the proposed reductions on existing workloads and the impact of position reductions. This is one set of criteria that we're looking at in making these decisions, but there are additional factors which need to be taken into consideration in program discontinuance decision-making, and these additional factors are spelled out in Administrative Regulation 4024, which is our college administrative regulation on program establishment, modification, and discontinuance. And there are actually quite a number of questions that we are supposed to ask in examining whether or not to propose discontinuing a program, including the degree of student demand for the program, considering recent and current enrollments, retention, persistence, and completion rates for the program, the long-term viability of the program, workplace demand for graduates of the program, the success level of students who have completed the program and are currently working in the field, which high school and/or university programs are articulated with the program, what percentage of students who have graduated from this program have transferred, what is the cost of the program compared to similar programs at other colleges and other programs at this college, are there any courses within the program that are required in another program? Could elements of the program be combined with another program? Is the program offered at any nearby colleges? What efforts have already been made to support the program? What effect has the program had on the college's diversity efforts? How would eliminating the program affect the ability of the college to fulfill its mission? And does the program meet a special community need or provide special benefits to the college? So as you can see, there's even two more. How would the elimination of the program affect students who are maintaining continuous enrollment in the program? And what strategies are in place to guarantee that students maintaining continuous enrollment in the program achieve their academic and vocational goals? So it's 23 different criteria that we need to examine, and we're looking at those criteria in relation to each of the programs and disciplines that we offer at the college. Having set forth what the criteria we are guided by, I'll now talk a little bit about the process itself. The process by which our programs are to be reviewed and considered for possible discontinuance is also laid out in Administrative Regulation 4024. Now, just a few words of background about this regulation. This regulation 4024 was established several years ago by LBCC. It was employed recently, a couple years back, leading to the discontinuance of the college's cabinet making and machine tool technology programs. Now, this program discontinuance process is derived from a model process that was developed and disseminated by the State Academic Senate back in 1999. Now, in employing this process, at the very outset, back in May, I sat down and met with the Academic Senate, and we discussed Regulation 4024 and the program discontinuance process contained therein. Because this process has some limitations, and I needed to make the Academic Senate aware of those limitations prior to embarking on this process. And the first of these limitations is that the process was designed not only at LBCC, but statewide at many community colleges in the state, primarily for assessing the viability of programs. It's not really designed for the circumstances that we are in which we're looking at large numbers of programs that need to be discontinued as a result of financial exigency. So you'll note that a lot of the criteria in the process are tied to viability rather than financial considerations. This process is also designed to be carried out over a longer time frame than we have available to us. When you do this process at many schools around the issue of program viability, it can take as many as 2 to 3 years to actually implement. And the Academic Senate understands that in this case, we're having to implement this process over the course of a single semester. Third limitation of this particular process is that it contains provisions for which insufficient time and resources available. The process talks about retraining faculty, allowing all currently enrolled students to complete the program in some cases. And these types of provisions aren't financially feasible, and if they were, we wouldn't be considering large-scale program discontinuance. And finally, the procedure addresses some issues that have to be collectively bargained, such as the effects of these reductions in force resulting from program discontinuance that really don't belong in an administrative regulation because they have to be negotiated with the collective bargaining groups. Nevertheless, with these limitations, the administration has committed to follow this process as closely as we possibly can and as openly and transparently as we possibly can. We discussed the possibility of coming up with a different regulation or a different process, but under the circumstances and given our time constraints, the Academic Senate and I agreed that it was best to pursue under the existing regulation that is in place. Let's talk about the steps in this program discontinuance process, which is already underway. The first step is that the Vice President of Academic Affairs calls a meeting of the dean and the full-time faculty of the department or the program. So we have already called 19 meetings. We've held about half of those meetings. You'll note that we have also invited department heads, union representatives, and also Academic Senate representatives to attend these meetings. So even though the regulation simply calls for a meeting between the dean, the VP, and the full-time faculty, we've actually broadened the participation in the meeting to make sure that everyone knows exactly how those meetings are transpiring. Now, at this initial meeting, we discussed the budget reduction criteria. We share these criteria that I just shared with you with the participants. We also go through various data. We show the faculty and the department head the data that we have on student retention, completion and success rates, the number of degrees and certificates that have been awarded over the past 6 years by the program. We look at the transfer rates for students who have taken 3 or more courses within the program. We look at enrollment data, including the weekly student contact hours to full-time equivalent student ratio, average section enrollments and wait lists. We look at information regarding job availability in the city and the region in relation to the number of program completers at LBCC and surrounding colleges. We look at the progress the department or program has made in assessing student learning outcomes. Now, it's important to point out that this should not be the first time that faculty members and department heads have seen these data. These are the very types of data that need to be included in the annual program review report that each department generates. And these very data have been available on the institutional research website of the college for a number of years. Also at this initial meeting, program faculty are going to have an opportunity, and have had an opportunity, to discuss possible intervention strategies that are designed to improve the program in the event that it's not discontinued. And this has been the most valuable aspect of these meetings up to this point, is we've actually got to sit down and talk with program faculty and department heads and to strategize how could we improve these programs in the event that we don't have to go that far down the list and we're able to keep your program. How can we make your program even better in terms of promoting student success? And we've gotten a lot of good ideas from those meetings and learned an awful lot. And additionally, we give the program faculty an opportunity to present additional data related to the discontinuance criteria, both at the first meeting and at the second meeting. We're going to hold those second meetings 3 weeks after the first meeting. So collectively, we're having 38 meetings over a 5-week period, 2 meetings with each of 19 faculty groups. Following the second meeting, a written report will be prepared by myself and the appropriate dean, and this written report will include a summary of the program's strengths and challenges, suggested intervention strategies, if applicable. We will not be proposing suggested intervention strategies for programs that we are recommending that they be discontinued as part of the first $2 million in cuts. We will include recommendations for either whether or not to discontinue the program or at which stage of the budget reductions to discontinue them. We're going to be presenting the board with a tiered list that will have proposals for $2 million worth of cuts, a second $2 million that will be tiered depending upon how well the state revenue estimates turn out, and then a third tier of cuts that will be necessary in the event that Prop 30 fails. These recommendations might include to discontinue the program. We might recommend that the program be retained and that we implement intervention strategies unless the projected budget deficit exceeds a specified level, in which case we'd have to discontinue the program. Or we will recommend that the program be retained unless Proposition 30 fails, in which case we may have to discontinue that program. So there will be a range of recommendations for each program. Copies of all 19 written reports, along with a proposed list of all college-wide budget reductions, not just the academic reductions in the programs, but all college-wide budget reductions, because there will be reductions in administrative services, student services, economic development, and all the units of the college. These will be distributed to the affected program faculty, and they will also be made available to members of the Academic Council in advance of its November 15th meeting. And at the November 15th meeting of the Academic Council, testimony will be permitted for program faculty and other interested parties so that they can address the Academic Council concerning this list of proposed budget reductions. Following this testimony, the Academic Council will discuss the matter, and then under the process, the Academic Council is permitted to make recommendations to the Superintendent President. At some point after the November Academic Council meeting, the Executive Committee, which is comprised of the college vice presidents, will finalize its recommendations and submit them to the Superintendent President. The Superintendent President then takes into consideration the recommendations of the Executive Committee, the recommendations of the Academic Council, and he is charged with preparing the final recommendations for consideration and action by the Board of Trustees, which we expect to have to you at your January 2013 meeting. We cannot just stop everything that we are doing in academic affairs in order to do program discontinuance. We have a very important student success agenda that we are pursuing at the same time. So I just briefly want to touch upon other elements of this student success agenda that we are going to be accomplishing over the course of this year. Up to this point, we've been talking about program discontinuance, which is the adjusting the range of program offerings to better focus on degree and certificate completion, transfer, and acquisition of basic skills. But we're also going to be shifting resources from serving recreational students to improving access to math, science, English, and foundational skills classes. We're going to be implementing the BOG changes that have just occurred regarding course repetition. In July, the Board of Governors changed the rules for course repetition, and they are no longer going to allow students to repeat courses with a very limited range of exceptions. Because we have a large number of students who have taken courses again and again and again, primarily in physical education and performing in visual arts. Well, in serving those hundreds of students, we've also left in thousands of students on wait lists for math classes, for English classes, for social science classes, for basic skills classes that they need to matriculate through the college. What we're going to do in implementing these BOG changes is we're going to shift those resources that we've had offering sections for recreational students. We're going to be able to offer more sections beginning in the fall of 2013 for math students, for English students, for psychology students, for students to get the courses they need to complete their degrees and certificates. Another important initiative is that we are going to be implementing student-centered scheduling effective in the fall of 2013. What this is going to do is it's going to reorganize the way we schedule our classes so that students are going to find that they can get their classes more readily and that they can get a full-time load without the time slots of the classes conflicting with one another. And we're going to be implementing some software called Schedule 25 at the same time, which is going to mean that many, many more students will have access to our classes by virtue of the way we schedule classes. And finally, we're going to continue to make progress toward achieving proficiency on the ACCJC rubric for Student Learning Outcomes Assessment. We are going to achieve proficiency on this rubric in accordance with the accreditation requirements by the end of this academic year. So there are many things going on in addition to program discontinuance in academic affairs, and I needed you to be aware of that. At this point, that concludes my presentation. No, it does not. I'm going to give you some outcomes. When we do these initiatives, good stuff's going to happen. And here's what's going to happen when we implement these 4 initiatives. You're going to see the rate of successful college completion, college-wide, go up. It's going to go from 67% in the fall of 2011, and we're going to hit 70% next fall. You're going to see our basic skills course completion rate go from 60.5% in 10-11 to 65% in 13-14. You're going to see the college-wide weekly student contact hours to full-time equivalent faculty ratio, which is a measure of how many students have access to our teachers, rise from 503 in the fall of 11 to 600 next fall. And you're going to see an increased proportion of Long Beach City College students who enroll in 12 or more units. That's going to go from 29% in the fall of 2011 to 35% or more in the fall of 2013. And finally, you're going to see our transfer rate, which is the percentage of students who transfer within 6 years of initial enrollment, rise from 35% to at least 40% by the end of the next academic year. Because we're going to be focusing on your student success agenda by virtue of these strategies that we're going to be implementing. So I don't want you to lose sight of the fact program discontinuance is a horrible thing and it affects people's lives. But at the same time, program discontinuance is just one leg of a multi-leg stool that we are implementing that is going to help our students rise up and be more successful. That concludes my presentation, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, any comments from the trustees? Trustee Otto?
Yes, very good presentation that helps me understand what the process is that we're about to go through. As difficult as the process seems to be, it seems inevitable. Can you spell out exactly at what point the faculty have opportunities to provide input into this process about what their thoughts are, either about the programs that they're involved in or ways that the process may be made better?
Yes, there are multiple access points for faculty members to provide input. The first, of course, is the series of meetings that is held between the dean, the vice president, the full-time faculty assigned to the program that is being considered, and the representatives of the academic senate and the faculty union. There are two of those meetings, and those meetings, we're about halfway through the first round, and we've had some very productive discussions in those meetings. Second opportunity for faculty input will come with the testimony that they can provide at the Academic Council hearing on November 15th. That's where everyone in the college will know all of the budget cuts that are being proposed, not just in academic programs, but across the college, and have an opportunity to comment on those. The third opportunity for faculty input will, of course, occur when the Board of Trustees holds a public hearing in January on the proposed budget reduction.
Could you explain for the benefit of those who don't know exactly what the Academic Council is?
Sure. The Academic Council is a shared governance body. It is comprised of the Executive Committee of the Academic Senate, and I believe it's also comprised of the President's Executive Committee. So it's a group of faculty members and administrators who collectively are the shared governance group for matters pertaining to academic and professional affairs.
Okay. And is it that group that makes the decision about recommendations that go forward with regard to program discontinuance?
The superintendent president will get two recommendations. He will get a recommendation from his executive team, which is the vice president's, and then the academic council will also be able to make a recommendation with regard to that list of proposed reductions.
And does the faculty have an opportunity to present their own ideas, both at each of the points that you've talked about where discussions are going on, these early meetings in September and October and then on November 15th?
Yes, because for one thing, they're participating in the early meetings. For another thing, at the conclusion of those meetings, the written report that is prepared by the dean and the vice president that contains the preliminary recommendations will be distributed to the affected faculty members, to the department heads who are faculty members, and to each member of the academic council. And so through this representative process, faculty will be able to provide input, and they'll also know the rationale for each of the recommendations because we're going to have data in there, and we're also going to have the criteria that we're citing in support of those recommendations, and they'll be able to respond to them.
Yeah. Well, one of my concerns is that on November 6th, we're going to have an election, and there's going to be some decisions made about Proposition 30. And while we're not naive in thinking that Proposition 30 is going to solve all our problems, we know that if it doesn't pass, it's going to create virtually exponential new problems for us. Do you think that if there's only 9 days between the date of that election and November 15th, that there's adequate time to fine-tune what it is that we're doing, or is that process ongoing throughout this whole process?
Well, the president's team is not only preparing the $4 million worth of cuts that we may have to implement in the event that Prop 30 passes, we're also preparing a contingency plan for the second $4.5 million worth of cuts. No, we could not wait to see what happens on November 6th, although unfortunately some districts are doing just that. What we are doing is preparing that second tier of cuts right now, and the academic council hearing happens to fall after that election. So unfortunately, if the Prop 30 fails, then the academic council will see the entire proposal of $8.4 million worth of cuts. They'll only have to see $4 million worth of cuts if Proposition 30 passes. But it's really important to point out that we could still have to face more than $2 million in cuts, even if Proposition 30 passes, because there are a whole lot of other, as there always is, questionable revenue estimates in the state budget. For example, the state budget is predicated on Facebook stock selling at an average price of $35 a share. It's currently trading at about half of that. We have to assume that we're getting a certain level of revenues from higher student fees. That almost never happens. There are assumptions in there about property tax revenues, and we know that property tax revenues may not come in as projected. So we will be prepared for all contingencies. The board will be able to make its decision with as much information as is available at the time in January, but there still will not be 100% information availability at the time that you're charged with making your decision.
So on November 15th, at the meeting of the Academic Council, some decisions are made in terms of what goes forward, and then all of a sudden we're into finals and the holidays, and then we come back from that, and in a relatively short time frame, the recommendations come to the board to make decisions about what to do. Is that an adequate time to make these decisions, or are we pressed to make those decisions at that time because of the need to make whatever reductions need to be made?
Because many of these reductions involve employees that have to be noticed by March 15th, and there are a lot of steps after the board action that have to occur prior to March 15th, we are recommending that the board take that up at the January meeting. It also gives you additional time for deliberations in the event that you need more time. If we waited until February, we'd have another month in advance of that, but we would be very close to the March 15th deadline, and it would not provide us adequate time to notify our faculty and to work with them to provide them with the STIRS information that they need, the counseling they may need, and the other types of support that we want to provide them with.
Yeah. And my last two questions have to do with your anticipated outcomes. Two of them were particularly striking in the magnitude of the changes which they indicate will occur as a result of what it is that we're going through. The first is this increase in college-wide student access ratios from 503 in the fall of 2011 to 600.
Yes.
Almost a 20% increase in the fall of 2013.
Yes.
Can you explain why that is and why it's so dramatic?
Yes, what it basically means is that 20% more, we'll be able to serve 20% more students for what it cost us to serve the number of students that we're serving now. Because it's a measure of, WISH to FTEF is a measure of costs. It's also a measure of student access. By implementing student-centered scheduling, this is going to enable students to register for more units. Because the way we've previously done scheduling, a student comes in, he says, I want to take 12 units. Oh, okay, here's my math class. It's offered at 8 o'clock in the morning. Now I need an English class. Oh my goodness. It's offered only at 2:30 in the afternoon. Oh, I need a reading class. Oh my goodness, it's offered Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It doesn't fit with my schedule. So students are not able to get an optimal schedule by virtue of the way we currently schedule our classes. Once we implement student-centered scheduling, they are going to be able to get a full-time schedule more readily. Once we implement Schedule 25, that is a software that enables us to assign classes to rooms based on room capacity. And what that's going to do is dramatically increase the number of seats available for students. You do those two things alone, and you're going to have a lot more students being able to get the classes that they need.
And lastly, and I think I know the answer to this, but we're going to also increase the proportion of students who enroll in 12 or more units from 29% in the fall of 2011 to 35%. That's quite a bit in the fall of 2013.
Yes.
Why is it important that we have students that are taking 12 units or more?
Well, it's important for at least two reasons. First of all, there's a lot of research that shows that full-time students have higher rates of successful course completion, retention, and persistence than students who take courses part-time. And secondly, only if a student takes a full-time course load can they matriculate to a four-year school or complete their degree and certificate in a timely manner. We have students who take upwards of 6 years to get enough units to transfer, or upwards of 6 years to complete a certificate and be able to get a job and feed their families. So by arranging our schedules more effectively, we're going to be able to allow students to complete their goals much sooner and get out there and help the workforce and get out there and complete their transfer degrees.
Yeah. I couldn't help but notice that yesterday the governing board of the community colleges here in California passed unanimously priority registration. Is that part of this student success agenda too, and how does it work?
Absolutely. Priority registration changes are essential. What we've done historically is priority registration has been based in a large part on how many units you had completed, no matter how many units that might be. Consequently, there have been a large percentage of our students who have taken hundreds of units, literally hundreds of units from Long Beach City College. They would go first in priority registration. The first change that occurred is that students with more than 110 units, which by the way is 50 units more than you need to complete the typical associate degree, those students now go to the back of the line for priority registration. That means there are more seats available for first-time students for students who are actively pursuing degrees and certificates. And that's been a huge impact. We've already seen, for example, this semester, the percentage of students who complete a full-time load is up 14% as of yesterday. That's a phenomenal achievement. And what that's going to mean is it's going to be reflected in higher rates of student course completion, retention, persistence, and transfer. We're going to get even more than that when we do these changes with Schedule 25 and implementing student-centered schedule.
So I guess with the reductions in the amount of money we get to educate students, it becomes more important to effectively and efficiently manage that so the maximum number of students can not only take classes but succeed. In other words, finish the classes they need to, be retained so that they can move on so that those seats are available for other students. Because I know that in the last 4 years, the number of community college students in California has decreased from about 2.9 million to 2.5 million. And that doesn't mean that that we don't need everybody to get through. We just haven't had the resources to do it. We're having to do it smarter.
It becomes absolutely essential to spend every dollar wisely and efficiently. And if we implement these changes that I'm talking about concurrently with these budget reductions, we can minimize the impact to our students.
Thank you.
Sure.
Trustee Kellogg.
The first question I had actually had to do with the one on the weekly student contact hours going from the 503 to 600, because that to have better explanation. I mean, if I had to put it in very layman's terms, it's mean we're asking a lot of things, but in particular we're asking our faculty, you're going to be doing a lot more. You're going to have more students, so on. I mean, in a very simplistic way, we're all going to work harder, and I appreciate it because that's, once again, I talked earlier about how we're all pulling together to try to do things. So I'm glad Doug brought that one up, because that's I hate to use the word efficiency, because that's real. We're not in the field of making widgets. We're in the field of education, but we are asking to do more, and they're performing. The question I did have, only because to put a little bit more of a face on it, as you went through this presentation, I'm sure some people looked at, because they noticed that some of our focus, because how our mission is getting a little bit tighter as far as Long Beach City College, and in the reference to, it seems that we're putting more emphasis on transfer. As was mentioned earlier, you have the areas where people are learning a trade. I'm sure they're saying, well, those are going to take a hit, but I think it was important why you explained the process and how we come to it, and how it's not we are trying to pick one or the other. We're trying to have a very inclusive process with everyone, including the faculty, and I'm glad, again, you did emphasize again that faculty and all the key components of this, of all the key individuals representing the different groups here, will be represented throughout the process. And so I just want to keep emphasizing that, because we can't lose focus on, at the end of this process, it is a very difficult result no matter what. The reason that brings me to the question I had still remaining was the one at the very beginning when we talked about where the best case scenario, we're looking at best case scenario with $2 million. Worst case scenario, 8.4 million.
Yes.
And I asked you previously on this one, but just again, so people can put a face on it, not an actual name, but what are we talking about when we get to those numbers from the 2 million to the 8 million as far as the impact on our faculty? And assuming it is faculty, what are we talking about as far as numbers?
Of the first $2 million, approximately a little more than half of that would be comprised of faculty salaries and benefits. We're talking about 9 full-time faculty positions. There will also be reductions in academic administrators as part of that first $2 million. We'll probably be proposing at least 2 fewer academic deans, for example. In the second $2 million, should we have to go, we're dividing that second $2 million into $500,000 quadrants. And we will recommend going down that list as far as we need to, based on the projected revenues that we know about come January. If we had to go all the way down to that second $2 million to encompass a total of $4 million in cuts, we'd probably be looking at about 20 full-time faculty positions, which would comprise slightly more than half of the $4 million in reductions. So these will not be reductions taken entirely out of full-time faculty. although a majority of the funds will be out of full-time faculty, because up to this point, a majority of the cuts have been taken by classified, part-time faculty, and some management employees.
Which in a way brings me the full circle back to the weekly student contact hours number getting up to 600 and 503.
Yes.
We're asking for less faculty members to do more.
Well, I want to point out a couple things on that. First of all, a lot of faculty members do that right now. We have faculty members that voluntarily teach double sections, that voluntarily take students in above the minimum class size, subject to the fire code. We have a lot of faculty members who have been pulling this weight all along. All these changes would do is spread that impact across the entire faculty. I also want to touch upon this impact on career technical programs. Although a good number of the programs that we're looking at are career technical programs, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of those career technical programs are going to fall at the top of this list of reductions. In the course of having meetings with our trades faculty, the deans and I are learning a lot of valuable information, and we're learning how we might be able to organize some of those trades programs more effectively without having to eliminate them entirely. So what I'm hoping to do is to come to you with some recommendations that will enable us to maintain a base of trades programs that is sustainable and upon which we can build to strengthen our trade programs in the long run.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, I think that, well, thank you for your presentation. It's very thorough, but I'm very hopeful that in the end, when we have our meetings in November and we come to January, that we keep in mind that the bottom line focus that we want is to get our students to provide the best that we possibly can with a minimal effect on them in regards to their continuing their programs and to reaching their goals in whatever it is that they want, the certificate transfer or a transfer degree, whatever it is that they want. And I think that's the driving issue that we have here is we want to maintain as much as we possibly can the services to the students, because that is our priority. Thank you, Gator, for that very informative and extensive report. Moving on to student support services, no item, no report. 13, administrative services. We have three action items here. We'll take one at a time. 12.1, the 2012-13 adopted budget, and this would be Vice President Gable.
Yes.
Approval.
Sorry. Let's I'll have a motion and a second. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Second. Okay. Discussion. Okay.
Well, actually, I think Eloy and Gaither kind of covered my presentation, so can I just go straight to questions?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Could you go to here to Madam Secretary Jackie? I'm sorry. You want to comment on this item? Is that it? Well, we already went through that presentation. Perhaps he'll make himself available after the meeting, and you could discuss it with him, because we're on the next agenda item here at this point. Sorry about that. Okay. Sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. I had a bad joke anyway. Okay, so on the budget, I'll be covering kind of the state budget, which we have heard a lot of tonight, as well as the board goals, the assumptions that went into the budget, and then give data detail as related to our FTS, all of our funds within the budget, and then we'll really focus on the unrestricted general fund, and then kind of go over some of the budget risk and the trigger language, both of which have been discussed at great detail tonight, but I'll just show you some slides on that. So moving into the state budget overview, just to remind everybody what was included in the state budget. The state budget had 0% COLA, and it is also predicated on Proposition 30 passing. So every bullet that is up here is with the assumption that Proposition 30 is going to pass, because that's the way the governor built his budget. So there's $50 million in growth funding. LBCC's share would be $796,000, which is about 175 FTES. Our student fees did increase. That went into effect this current summer of 12, and so they are now $46 per unit. There has been $8.3 million of unrestricted general fund cuts in the past that are continuing. And there has also been no restoration of our categorical cuts that were incurred in 2009-10. Some categoricals were cut by as much as 50%, others were cut by about a third. Those still continue and have not been restored by the state budget yet. There is a decrease in deferrals, and this is the cash deferrals. What that means is the state keeps some of the cash that they owe us, and they don't pay us until the next fiscal year. So we get a chunk in July and we get a chunk in August. That is decreasing down to $801 million on a statewide basis. The current amount is $961 on a statewide basis. So for Long Beach, it's $25 million for the 12-13 fiscal year. If Proposition 30 fails, that'll increase to $30 million that would be deferred for us. The redevelopment agency elimination that did occur, we've probably all heard about that, and there is language to hold us harmless for the property taxes related to the redevelopment agencies. There was a period in time where we thought that we could have additional cuts if the property taxes didn't come to community colleges from the redevelopment agencies, but the governor has put in hold harmless language for that. So, moving on to the board goals and how the budget that we built is helping to meet these goals. The first goal is supporting the student success agenda, and you heard a lot of Gaither talking about our student success agenda. But for this current 12-13 fiscal year, we did add approximately 50 sections for English, math, reading, and our student success courses, and we did reallocate funding for success coaches. The next goal of supporting the career technical education, workforce development, and economic development agendas in order to strengthen our regional economy. We're doing this by expanding the programs within the small business development area. We are into our 6th cohort of Goldman Sachs, so it's the 3rd year, but it's the 6th cohort. We do have a graduation coming up on October 1st, I believe, for one of the cohorts. We have expanded funding and some CTE programs through SB70, some nursing grants, and some Perkins grant renewals. And then there's also partnerships with healthcare and transportation to help us in that endeavor. And then lastly, the board goal of allocating resources in a manner that prioritizes the 2 previous goals. We've done that through the reorganizations that were implemented this past year. So some of the assumptions that the Budget Advisory Committee came up with, the first one is that we would redirect and have potential reductions in response to the state's budget. We all know that both of those have occurred. Deficit spending will be minimized. We have done that. And then there would be a carryover only for the Technology Master Plan. We agreed to budget a 0% COLA. And then we have no growth budgeted. So even though within the state budget, assuming Proposition 30 passes, there's about $796,000 in revenue that would come our way if we generate the FTES. We have not budgeted that revenue in what is presented to you tonight. Our target FTES is $19,500. We built in a 1% deficit factor, and again, just to remind everybody, what is the deficit factor? The deficit factor is what is imposed upon us by the state when at a statewide level, either the property taxes or the enrollment fees don't come in at the level that the state anticipates, and so rather than making up the difference of what they owe to community colleges, they apply a deficit factor. So they still pay community colleges what they had planned on paying, but community colleges just don't receive the property taxes or enrollment fees that were anticipated. So it's essentially a cut in revenue that is unknown until spring. We have a total cost of ownership methodology that we're starting to develop. So this is a model that we're looking at where we need to start planning for when our instructional equipment breaks down. We need to have funds to be able to purchase new instructional equipment. We need to have funds in order to purchase, air conditioning units, those types of things. Our vans that are used on the field trips, everything that we have that is really a big ticket item that you would think about. We want to move to a model where we're going to start setting aside funds for those, so that way we have money each year to kind of regenerate and replace. This includes technology equipment and everything like that. So we haven't funded any of that in the 12-13 year, but what we've said is it's something that we want to start developing for future year budgets. Another assumption was that we wanted to maintain a 5% reserve within the unrestricted general fund, and that we would have a load banking reserve and a vacation liability reserve. Some of the other assumption highlights is our benefit cost changes. Our health and welfare cost increased by only 2.6%. I think that's a fairly low increase of what we've seen over prior years, so that was a good thing. I guess it still increased, but it was better than a 10% increase, which we've seen in some prior years. Our PERS rate increased by 0.5%, but our state unemployment insurance rate decreased by 0.5%. And then our workers' compensation rate increased by 0.04%. And we did build our part-time hourly budget in accordance with what our FTES targets were. So moving on to FTES and just showing you a little bit of history of where we've been since 06-07 and where we are now. So I'll focus on the far two right columns, the 11-12 year, that's the one that we just finished. We served 19,706 full-time equivalent students. The state at this point has told us that they're going to pay us for 19,325. So we had 381 unfunded FTES. And then moving into the fiscal year 12-13, I mentioned previously that we're budgeting for FTES of 19,500. We're still anticipating that the state's going to pay us at the 19,325 level, and we'll have about 175 unfunded. Now, of course, if we get growth revenue, we'll need to generate these 175 in order to receive that growth revenue. So we've built that into our schedule, so we should be okay from that aspect. So moving into just an overview of all of the funds within the district, you see here we have over 10 funds, and each fund is for specific purposes. The one that we focus on, and that's really our general source of revenue and expenditures, is the unrestricted general fund. We have a restricted general fund, that's for all of our grants and categorical programs. So all of the money that comes into that fund is restricted for a specific purpose. It also includes our health service fees and our parking fund, because those are restricted by law on how you can use the money. We have a capital projects fund. That fund is for the money that is charged to our international and non-resident students. There's a cap outlay fee that is charged to them, as well as any of our state capital outlay projects. So, for example, our buildings, AA, BB, DD, and EE, that building program that's going on at the Pacific Coast campus, that is partially state funded. And so you see there in the middle column for the 11-12 year, we spent $7.1 million, but in 12-13, we're only planning on spending $1.6 in that fund, and that's because we've spent almost all of the funds that the state has given us, and then the remaining of the amount is coming out of the bond fund. We have a child and adult development fund. That is the fund where our 2 child care centers, the monies for both the grants and the child care fees run through there. We have a contract community education fund, which is just that. It's for specific education that we do with various businesses or on a contract education means. Our general obligation bond fund, as we all know, this is our Measure E, and the differences between what's budgeted and what we actually spend, you see that we spent $40 million in the 11-12 year, but we're budgeting $456 million. That's because we budget the entire amount of the obligation, the general obligation that exists. We have a retiree benefits fund. This is the fund that we both have monies in there for our future retirees, but we also pay all of our retiree health and welfare payments out of that fund. Our self-insurance fund is for our property and liability insurance purposes and all the claims and costs associated with that. Our student financial aid fund is all of the direct payments that go to the students from our Pell Grants, our federal work study, our supplemental education opportunity grants. Everything really that is granted to the students runs through the financial aid fund. And you see that in 11-12, we gave out $61.5 million in grants to our students. And for the 12-13 year, we're budgeting almost $76 million. That's about a 23% increase. So we all know that even though our student population is declining, more and more of those students are in need of financial aid, one, because our fees continue to increase, but we also have more and more students that are just trying to take advantage of the financial aid that's available to them. And then lastly, we have our Veterans Stadium Operations Fund, and that is for all the activity that goes on at Vet Stadium. So overall, for the 11-12 year, as a district as a whole, we spent almost $238 million. And for 12-13, we're budgeting almost $663 million. So now I'll just, a quick slide. I think we've already mentioned it once, that we did have expenditure reductions that were incurred this current fiscal year totaling $5.1 million. $1,255,000 of that was a reduction in management, and $3,817,000 of that was a reduction in our classified force. So moving into the unrestricted general fund, the overall summary, what we have here is both showing where we ended our unaudited actual 11-12, as well as our adopted budget for the 12-13 year that is for you guys to approve tonight, and then the change between the actual, what we spent last year, and what we're projecting to spend in 12-13. So overall for our revenues, you see we only have about a $105,000 difference in what we received this prior year and what we're anticipating to receive in the current year. Our expenditures, we are budgeting those to be down by about $1.9 million. And then our surplus or deficit, as I think President Oakley already mentioned, we do still have a budgeted deficit. You see there that for the 12-13 year, we're budgeting the $1,268,000 deficit, and that's basically we're budgeting to spend more than the revenue that's coming into us, which brings our fund balance down to $13,572,000, just over 13%. To give you a little bit more detail on the revenue, we have it broken down between our federal revenue, not a lot of change there, a $600 decrease. Our apportionment, this is the money that comes from the state that is generated directly from our full-time equivalent students that we serve. So you see that we're projecting about a $480,000 increase in our apportionment revenue, and that is really a change in the deficit factor from year to year. Back in when we closed our books for 10-11, we had projected a 1% deficit factor. When the state finalized our books for 10-11 in February of 12, it was a 0.32% deficit factor. So we had about $700,000 additional revenue that came in. However, for the current year, the 11-12 year, we incurred a 2.4% deficit factor. And what we're budgeting in our 12-13 year is only a 1% deficit factor. So as you can see, that deficit factor is really unpredictable. We go from 1 year of over 1.5% down to 0.32%, up to 2.4%. We've tried to remain steady in what we budget at 1%, but it truly is an unpredictable number, and sometimes it changes 3 times during the year. So that's a difficult one to try to pin down exactly. Not a lot of change on our other state revenue, only about $6,200. Our local revenue, we're projecting that to decrease by about $591,000. That's related to, we think that we may be serving fewer non-resident and international students, as well as our interest income continues to decrease because the state continues to keep more of our money. And then our other sources, we're projecting that to increase by about $210,000, and that's directly tied to the grants that we have. When grants allow us, we charge what's an indirect cost rate, or it's kind of an overhead rate. The grants will reimburse the unrestricted general fund for the overhead, and so that's projected to increase from what we received in 11-12. So that's everything I just said. So moving on to the expenditure summary, we've broken it down by major classification. So for our academic salaries, we're projecting that we will spend about $982,000 more in the 12-13 year than we did in the 11-12 year. That's due to a number of factors, and remember, these are net numbers. So we have 4 new faculty in there, as well as step and column increases, but it also includes both retirements and reduction in force for some of our management team members as well. Our classified salaries, again, we have a decrease of about $2.7 million. That doesn't equal the 3.8 that I just mentioned because we have step and column increases that go into effect for our classified staff. And so again, this is a net number. Our benefits, we're projecting those to be down by about $1.5 million. Benefits are really a function of your salaries, so when your salaries are going down, your benefits will go down somewhat. And in addition to that, we had a supplemental early retirement plan payoff that we won't have in the 12-13 year. So that saved us about $608,000. As far as the other categories, our supplies, services, capital outlay, and other outgo, there's not one thing in particular that you can really pinpoint of why we're projecting those to increase. For the most part, these 4 categories of expenditures are up to the discretion of each individual manager, and fortunately, all of our managers and department heads haven't been spending every dollar that they've been allocated in the past few years. And so we do show savings, but when we do our budget, it's a rollover budget. So we're not rolling over, and we're not penalizing departments for not spending their money. They still get the same amount of budget that they had in the previous year, whether they spend it or not. So you'll almost always see an increase in each of these 4 line items from actual to budget for that reason. So that is what I just covered. We've covered this, I think, in depth. This is just kind of a pie chart showing what each major classification, how much of that equates to our total expenditures as a whole. Salary and benefits is about 87.5% of our total budget. Here's a breakdown of our reserves. As I mentioned, we have a board-mandated reserve of 5%. That amount is $5,146,000. We do have a reserve for economic uncertainties at this point in time. As we've mentioned, if Proposition 30 fails, we will be cut mid-year, January 1st, 2013, $6.4 million. So this economic uncertainty will cover that $6.4 million in the event that Proposition 30 fails. So we're not planning on making any mid-year cuts. All of the cuts that we are planning for will take effect July 1st, 2013. So we will just erode our fund balance if Proposition 30 fails. So again, there, the total fund balance is $13,573,000, which is about 13.2%. Here's a breakdown that we've been doing the past few years just to give us an idea of what we're working with. So what this does is breaks down our fixed costs with our discretionary costs. And what we have for academic and classified salaries as well as benefits, those are our permanent full-time and permanent part-time employees' salaries. This does not include any hourly salaries, so it doesn't include our part-time faculty or our part-time classified. It's only our permanent full-time and permanent part-time employees. And then the other fixed costs, that is things like our utilities, our software licensing, our audit fees, the types of things that we really don't have discretion over. We have to pay them or our lights get shut off, that type of thing. So you see that we've been working to try to decrease the percentage of our total fixed costs, and in our 12-13 budget, we have accomplished that. So we're bringing our total fixed costs down to just over 82.5%, and our discretionary costs are just about 17.5% of our total budgeted expenditures. Here's a 7-year trend, and we've seen this before. There is a new line item here. It's actually the second line item that's entitled Salaries and Benefits as a percentage of total revenue and other sources. Most of the time we focus our salaries and benefits as a total, as a percentage of our total expenditures. But I thought it was important to look at and to see, well, how does that compare to our revenue? We know that our revenue has been declining steadily, and we have been making expenditure reductions every year for the last 3 years, but it's really not keeping up. So as you can see here, in the 11-12 fiscal year, 91.9% of our revenues were spent on salaries and benefits. And then in the 12-13 year, we're budgeting that 88.6% of our revenue will be spent on salaries and benefits. So I think that's why we're having all these difficult decisions, is right there with looking at that data. Here's another graphical picture comparing that same year, 06-07, to where we are in 12-13. So you can see that in the past 7 years, our revenues have declined $10 million, and our expenditures have declined about $1.2 million. So again, even though we've made all these difficult decisions, had we not made those decisions, we would be in a much worse situation. I've mentioned our critical cash flow changes, and this one was somewhat of a surprise that came to us in early June, where legislation was passed whereby the state decided to defer our cash from the first 6 months into the next 6 months of the fiscal year. We really didn't have a whole lot of time, but here is a graphical picture of what that means to us. So the blue bar is the 11-12 fiscal year. The red bar is our 12-13 budgeted year, assuming that the taxes pass, and then the green bar is the 12-13 year, assuming that the taxes fail. But you can see if you look at the blue bars compared for what was received in the first 6 months to what was received in the second 6 months, there is a significant difference. And just looking at those first 6 months there, last year in the first 6 months, we received $41.6 million. This year, the state says that they're going to pay us $22.8 million. So basically, we're getting almost $19 million less in cash the first 6 months than what we received last year, with a month's notice that they were going to do this. The second 6 months, that one, I don't even know how they calculated that, because last year we got $9 million. If taxes pass, we'll get 29, and if taxes fail, we'll get 17. So that one is just all over the board, which is making it very difficult for us to do cash projections. We know that we're going to have to issue a TRANS, which is a tax revenue anticipation note. That's basically a form of short-term financing to give us cash so that we have enough cash on hand to pay our bills. But we don't know how much, because we really don't know how much we're going to be receiving in that second 6 months of the year. At this point in time, our TRANS could be anywhere from $20 to $30 million that we're going to have to issue probably around February. So going into the budget risk, what I tried to show here was some of the difference between Proposition 30 passing and Proposition 30 failing. So I'll focus on it passing first. Excuse me. So we know that we're funded at the prior year level. So that's a given, and that's what we've built into our budget, basically. Our deferrals will decrease, which we just saw on the previous slide, although our deferral will still be $25 million. Just as a point of reference, our monthly payroll and benefits runs about $8 million. So this is about 3 months of our salary and benefits is deferred into the next fiscal year. There's $50 million of growth. As I mentioned, our share is $796,000, or about 175 FTES. And then Proposition 30 will create what's called an Education Protection Act. And within that act, we said, we've already said that Proposition 30 is going to increase our sales tax by 0.25% for 4 years and increase the personal income tax on those earners over $250,000 for 7 years. That is estimated in the governor's budget that will generate $8 billion of revenue for the state during the 12-13 year. And then community colleges within the budget language are guaranteed 11% of that $8 billion, or basically $855 million has been estimated would come to the community college system if Proposition 30 passes. Our share of that, according to the Chancellor's Office, is $21.5 million. The concern here is that the Legislative Analyst Office has come out and said that they believe that $8 billion is overstated anywhere from 10 to 25%. And since community colleges are not guaranteed $855 million, only 11% of the revenue that comes in, I think we have budget risk of up to $5.4 million, even if Proposition 30 passes. Now, the really bad part of this is that we won't know, and the state doesn't have to certify how much revenues come in until around June 20th of 2013. So we could get to almost the end of the fiscal year, and then the Chancellor's Office will give us our P2 apportionment report those last 2 weeks of the fiscal year, and we could lose up to $5.4 million without even blinking an eye and not even knowing it was coming. So that's one of the I think that's probably the scariest part of this entire budget situation that we're in right now. If Proposition 30 fails, we know what's going to happen. There's no uncertainty. We're going to be cut $6.4 million. Our deferrals are going to increase to $30 million, and we'll have no growth funding. So what we've done is develop some trigger language to try to react to some of this budget uncertainty. And we've mentioned this, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on it. We've said that we're going to have a base cut of $2 million. That's what that third column represents. We've also said that we'll have a trigger 1, and Gaither was mentioning that we have 4 different quadrants of expenditure cuts that we're working with, and that's what's represented here and is tied to our deficit factor. So for every 0.5% change in the deficit factor, we'll have additional $500,000 in cuts that will be incurred. And then lastly, we have trigger 2, which is $6.4 million. So we could be facing cuts anywhere between $2 and $8.4 million. So that concludes my presentation. I'll open it up to any questions.
Trustees, any comments, questions of this presentation? Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Vice President Gable, for this presentation. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Ready for take the vote? No comments?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, let's go on to the next item, and that would be the, I lost my place. Here it is. That would be item 12.11, the 2011-2012 CCFS Annual Financial and Budget Report. This is also an action item. Can I have a motion,
Move
please?
approval.
Move approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, and a second. Discussion. Okay, Anne-Marie?
This report is basically what's required by the Chancellor's Office to reflect both our actual numbers for 11-12 and our budget for 12-13. So it's just a different summarization of everything that I just went over in the budget presentation.
Okay, any comments, discussion from members of the board? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, 12.12, resolution termination of the special pay 403B plan. This is an action item. Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a second. Discussion.
We have a quick explanation. I read the material, but
Yes, what this is this was a plan that was established many years ago, back in 2003. And it was a specific plan at that point in time for classified employees that were taking an early retirement incentive. And so rather than being paid out by the district, the money was put into this 403B plan on behalf of the classified employees. We no longer do that. And so we need to really close out this plan. There's changes that are being made by the IRS on what's required of the plan as well as costs to the districts. And so we're recommending that we just terminate this plan and provide the employees the money that still exists within the plan. There's only 3 employees that exist. Actually, there's 2 employees. One of them is deceased. And so we're in the process of trying to find the beneficiaries of the deceased employee to disperse the monies to.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Okay. Any nays? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item 14, Pacific Coast Campus, no items, no report. College Advancement and Economic Development, no items, no report. Not here. Academic Senate, we have a presentation.
Yes, we do. Jim Steele is going to present on 2 of the programs that are on the list for possible program discontinuance, on medical assisting and diagnostic medical imaging.
Oh, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak. And we figured since we are on the discontinuance radar, it'd be a good idea for you guys to find out who we are and what we do. So the original reports that we received were a little misleading, and a lot of them compared us to proprietary schools in the area. And we have come to learn that the California Student Aid Commission and the Department of Education, the Employment Development Department, are no longer funding proprietary schools because they found that the students were undereducated, and we have found that students that come from those proprietary schools actually come to us for further education. And our enrollment in our programs mimic that of Long Beach City College and the community as a whole. Our programs are usually the first step for anybody in a healthcare career that want to do healthcare other than nursing. Undoubtedly, one of you, all of you, or your loved ones have been cared for by someone who has gone through our program. The medical assisting program has been part of this institution since the beginning. It's a one-year program and was originally known as nursing assisting. This program has served a wide variety of students for over the 50 years. The majority of these students receive a certificate from Long Beach City College, and many move on to achieve an associate degree. These students have gone on to work in doctors' offices, healthcare clinics, the health department, the Red Cross, continuing care facilities, and they are the first people you're going to interact with when you go to a doctor's office. They also help run the office, and they are the assistants to the physicians. The medical professionals that our program is associated with have great praise for our students. They consistently turn away the undereducated proprietary school students. The projected job outlook for medical assisting by the year 2020 is a 31% increase in need. The medical assisting program has served as a stepping stone for further education in healthcare. Students have gone on to medical imaging, vocational nursing, registered nursing, and some students have gone on to become physician's assistants and even physicians. This is an entry-level program and provides a straight pathway from high school into healthcare. The medical imaging program has been around since 1969. In that time, we've graduated students that directly serve the Southern California population and well beyond. I even have a student that's been working in Hawaii for about 20 years now. We recently began a computerized tomography program, and it's the first one in the state of California. We also have one of the few MRI programs in the state. We currently have 125 students on our wait list for medical imaging. We have about 35 to 37 students on our MRI wait list. We have 20 students in our brand new CT program, and we hold monthly information sessions where we usually get 12 to 15 students interested in getting on our wait list. With the aging baby boomer population, which I am one of, they predict a 28% increase in the need by the year 2020. Our students go on to nuclear medicine, radiation oncology, interventional radiography, administration, and education. All of our graduates get an associate degree, and by 2015, our testing board is making that a mandatory requirement, that all students who want to become radiologic technologists have to get an associate degree. Many of our students go on to get a bachelor's, master's, and even PhDs. We have a close working relationship with the medical centers in our area, and we affiliate with Los Alamitos Medical Center, Lakewood Medical Center, Memorial Medical Center, St. Mary Medical Center, St. Francis Medical Center, the Long Beach VA Medical Center, and we hope to regain Community Hospital as a clinical affiliate. The Department of Veterans Affairs classifies both medical assisting and medical imaging as high-demand professions, and returning vets are subsidized for coming into our program. Without the contribution of both of these healthcare career pathways at LBCC, the medical field would not be able to function. We help provide a workforce even as students. It would be a shame to lose these valuable programs that have and will continue servicing our students and community today and far into the future. If you're wondering about the little gifts that are in front of you, the travel mug is for Radiologic Technology Week, which celebrates the Rankin's discovery of X-rays from 1895, and it comes within the first week of November because he discovered them on November 8th. And the little hand sanitizer with the instructions is to try and help keep you healthy. So I would like to thank you for your time and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions, comments from the trustees?
quick comment. I thought that was a very good presentation, and I would, April, I'd make a request of you, and that is, as you've said that what you're going to do is try and present information about the programs that have been on this list for consideration for discontinuation. Could you provide us with written materials of the presentations that they make so that we can have that information as we consider all these things as time goes by, if it's available, of course, but it would be helpful for decision-making purposes.
Okay, I will do my best at that, yes. I do want to tell you that I want to thank Jim for the awesome information. I think it was very helpful. And I wanted to tell you that next time we meet, whatever that is, I think the end of this month?
September 25.
Right. That Christopher Chin will present some information on photography, and Mike McMullen will come and talk about real estate.
Great. Jim, I would just say to you, I am a very big consumer of medical imaging and medical assisting as well, and so I know how valuable your work is.
Me too. Not personally, but me too. Okay, we're on the next item, trustee communications. Trustees, Trustee Bowen?
Yes, I wanted to say, we brought up a couple things at the last meeting, stuff that I wanted to agendize that we should have a resolution on. I was glad to see that we acted on Prop 30 tonight. That's very important. I also brought up the issue of how the Community College League of California has taken a position in opposition to Prop 32, and they have a sample resolution that they are asking boards of trustees of the community colleges throughout the state to adopt. I had just gotten that email from Scott Lay, a few hours ago, a few hours before, 2 weeks ago when we came to our meeting, and I was, I didn't have it in front of me. I have, however, made some copies of it so I can. It's actually the whole email that I was sent, including the text of the sample resolution. I would like to see this be something that we can vote on soon, because it's very important. Among the things that are listed here in the sample resolution is that Prop 32 would interfere with the ability of supporters of community colleges to communicate voters about the impact of general obligation bonds and parcel taxes, but also more generally, the unfairness of the attempt to silence the voice of unions and not the other special interest groups that are exempted from this. And and finally, the idea when we vote on layoffs, as we did tonight, all board members have expressed the idea that we have no control over this, but we sympathize with our employee unions here. I can think of no better way to show that we mean that than by showing that we're standing with them in this fight against the effort to silence their voice in politics. So I just wanted to say that, and I would like to pass the copies of the resolution down to the other board members and to President Oakley.
Okay, I think that we can refer this item to staff for review with me, and we'll address it then. Thank you, Trustee Boyd, for bringing this to our attention. Any other trustee communications? Okay, we'll move on. Any new business? I didn't hear anything else. Oh, yes, there was one new business. We would like to receive any copies of reports that are coming from the Academic Senate in the presentations in future meetings. Correct?
Yes, and I think I'll ask Vice President Lowenstein to talk with our Academic Senate President as far as to discuss how to best do that, because it's going to be a lot of information being passed out regarding these programs. We want to make sure that the board has the information that is being considered in the process.
I'd also like to request, if it's possible, I know it's probably fluid at this point, however, if we can have an agenda of presentations that will be coming up within the next couple of meetings.
With regard to the programs?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful
to
prepare us in terms of what's coming down the pike and what we're going to be listening to.
In all fairness to all of the programs, because if you really look, there's 17 programs on the list, okay? And you heard 2. Next week we have 2. If I count up the meetings before January, I don't believe you're going to hear them all. And especially not with the 15 minutes that I am given here to divide up among these people. So if you really want to hear everybody, then you're going to have to think about it.
I basically didn't make that specific suggestion, just that as presentations are going to be coming and going to be agendized, if we can get an advance report of what we're going to be listening to. So
But I did want to add that in there. I mean, if you do want to hear everybody, you might want to think about where else could we add some of these people if you do. If you don't,
Okay. I'll let staff consider that one. We'll work with staff on that, on how best we can approach this, definitely. Okay. Future reports, none? All right. We have one request here for a presentation on non-agenda items, and this is from Juan Diaz, representing himself. And the subject is the art department. Is Mr. Diaz available? Mr. Diaz is not available, so I guess we'll scratch that presentation. Okay, we are now at adjournment. Can I have a motion, please? Move to adjourn, seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you for your attention.